Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Iran is reportedly planning to make a new move to protect its nuclear program from a possible Israeli military strike in case the U.S. and its talks with Iran breaks down. What we've learned about the victims of the tragic shootings of two different staffers at the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., including their faith and what they hope to accomplish in the Middle East. The battle over biotechnology between China and the United States. We're going to take a look at how it affects U.S. national security. And our Studio 5 conversation with author Annie F. Downs about her book. It's a children's book called Where Did TJ Go? It deals with grief and loss. All those stories and more coming up right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Friday, May 23rd. We're going to begin in the Middle East with apparently growing tensions over Iran's nuclear program. Iran now reportedly planning to possibly move its nuclear materials to new locations. Axios reports Iran is taking that step to protect that nuclear material from a potential Israeli military strike. If Iran does move that material, it will make it much harder to determine if it's building a nuclear weapon or not. Iran's latest threat comes after CNN and Axios reported Israel is considering a quick strike on Iran's nuclear program if talks between the U.S. and Iran break down. Axios also reports one source said Israel believes its window for a successful strike could close soon. Israeli embassies around the world are on heightened security after the murders of two embassy workers in Washington, D.C. Investigators say the attack are investigating the crime as a hate crime and an act of terrorism. We're also learning more about the victims as family and friends mourn their loss. Yaron LIschinsky and Sarah Lynn Milgram were gunned down while leaving an event for young diplomats to discuss strategies for helping civilians in Gaza and people build peace at the Capitol Jewish Museum Wednesday night. The suspect, Elias Rodriguez, is charged with murder of foreign officials. Court documents reveal the shooting was captured on surveillance video outside that museum. It reportedly shows Rodriguez firing at the victims several times after they fell to the ground. He then walked into the museum where he turned himself into police, telling them he did it for Palestine and Gaza, then repeatedly said, "Free Palestine." U.S. Attorney for D.C. Jeanine Pirro told reporters Rodriguez also faces charges of hate crimes and terrorism.
Violence against anyone based on their religion is an act of cowardice. It is not an act of a hero. It is the kind of case that we will vigorously pursue. Anti-Semitism will not be tolerated, especially in the nation's capital.
The victims were planning to be engaged in Jerusalem next week. Both were dedicated to working towards building peace for Christians, Jews, and Muslims in the Middle East. Yaron immigrated to Israel at the age of 16 and served in the military. Born to a Jewish father and Christian mother, he was a member of Jerusalem's Messianic community. Vanessa Mistretta, a member of his congregation in Jerusalem, spoke with CBN News.
I remember just he had a strong friend group. They were all just super close and loved God and loved Yeshua and just were passionate about really making an impact.
She talked about his love for his family and for Sarah. Sarah Milgram was from Overland Park, Kansas, and involved with the local Jewish community. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. So, Chris, what has been the reaction in Israel to these murders since the news came out a day or so ago?
Well, Ephraim, so many people here are devastated. Israelis in general are mourning the death of both Yaron and Sarah. Israeli media is saying what a testimony that they left behind, Yaron in particular, as they worked there in the Israeli embassy. The Messianic body, you just heard the testimony from Vanessa Misrata. They're grieving, and that's just indicative of what's happening around the Messianic community as well as Israelis in general. Yaron was known by so many. This afternoon, the body of Yaron and Sarah will arrive here in Israel. They'll be greeted by representatives of the family and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Their bodies will be coming here to the airport. There'll be a brief private ceremony at the site, and then the bodies will be transferred for burial. And at the family's request, there'll be no media or photographers will be allowed at the event. But undoubtedly, in a few days, there'll be a Shiva, which typically the Jewish people sit for 7 days grieving the loss of their loved one. But just a devastating impact here in Israel for the brutal murder and assassination of these two young, wonderful people from all accounts.
And Chris, we do understand they were Messianic believers. What can you tell us about that?
Well, Messianic Judaism is a religious movement made up of people who they identify ethnically and culturally as Jewish. Simply, they are Jews who believe that Jesus, or Yeshua in Hebrew, is the Jewish Messiah. And you could just say they're simply followers of Jesus. They believe in the Hebrew Scriptures, and they also believe in the New Testament. That's called in Hebrew the Brit Hadashah. The Hebrew Scriptures some people refer to as the Old Testament. But many congregations are here throughout Israel. And this is a quote from one, a good friend of Yaron. He says, "Our congregation is all Jewish Israelis for the most part. They read from the Torah scroll, and everything they do is in Hebrew. Many Messianic believers serve in the IDF. And since October 7th, many have fallen. Just like any other Israelis, they serve side by side." Yaron, he worked for the state of Israel there in the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. I heard earlier Yakil Leiter, the Israeli ambassador, just speak glowingly about he lived and worked. He worked very close to the ambassador and really spoke so highly of him. And so these Messianic believers, they defend Jewish state on the battlefront, like Yaron on the diplomatic front, and they pray as well for the peace of Jerusalem.
The possibility of an Israeli airstrike on Iran's nuclear program seems to be increasing. What do we know about that at this hour?
Well, there's a lot of reports going out there, Ephraim, that Israel is ready to strike Iran's nuclear sites. It has its finger on the figurative trigger of the nuclear sites. Iran on its side, it's claiming their program is purely peaceful, and then an attack would be a violation of international law. They sent a letter to the head of the United Nations. They say, and they're warning, an attack on their sites could have dangerous consequences. It could have radioactive releases, that would go beyond the borders of Iran. And they're going to take all the necessary actions to defend its citizens and installations. They'll say they'll respond decisively, take special measures to protect their nuclear materials and facilities. And they're going to hold the U.S. government responsible. So right now, Ephraim, it looks like there is increasing tension, that maybe this is the window that Israel is looking for to attack Iran's nuclear facilities while these negotiations are going on between the U.S. and Iran. But they look like they've hit a roadblock about enriched uranium. Iran is saying that they have to continue their enriching uranium, and the U.S. says they have to stop.
Chris, you attended an important conference this week. Tell us about its focus and what you learned about what's happening with Islam in the Middle East.
Well, some are calling it a revolution and a shift from a Shiite axis to a Sunni axis. And what they mean by that is that Iran for years had dominated the Middle East and had created these proxy groups surrounding Israel, like a ring of fire to try to destroy Israel. And now that ring of fire has been destroyed in large part. Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. And yet now there's a Sunni axis, and that would be the rise of Syria and Turkey and Qatar. And many people are looking at that as what will happen in the future right now. This is the shift, a huge shift here in the Middle East.
What is the latest on Israel's assault on Hamas in Gaza?
Well, called Gideon's Chariots, as we've talked about, Ephraim, they're trying to force Hamas to surrender. The idea plans to limit Hamas control to a small area in the place called Khan Yunis. And so this is what they plan to do. They hope to do. Just a few days ago, Sinwar, he's the brother of Yahya Sinwar, he was killed. And that's a very important development because most of all the leadership of Hamas has been eliminated now. But this is the goal, to try to squeeze Hamas into a smaller area, defeat Hamas, and free the hostages.
What do you have for us on Jerusalem Dateline this evening?
Well, we have an update on the latest on what happened there in Washington. We also have a profile on a Regent University student who came here for a year. We know him quite well here in the Jerusalem Bureau. We have a profile on his year being in Israel during a war. We have analysis on the changes in the Middle East, how much has changed in 1 year. And we also have an interview about what's coming up next week called the Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast. We talked to Albert Vexler. He's the director. How many people are coming here to stand with Israel during its crisis and to pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
All right, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you as always for your insight. And of course, we look forward to hearing from you again come next week. I want to remind you at home that you can see the latest from Jerusalem Dateline on the CBN News channel. You can catch it this evening at 8 Eastern. You can also watch it on the CBN News app, and you can find it on YouTube. Coming up, we're going to look at a war of a different nature over biotechnology. And the big question, is China winning that war? We'll see how the answer could reshape global power and put the United States' security at risk. We've got the story for you when we come back. You are watching CBN NewsWatch. America currently leads the world in biotechnology, but China is gaining ground, and a report warns the U.S. must take action or risk falling behind in this field, which is critical to our national security. National security correspondent Caitlin Burke brings us this story.
Biotechnology is simply technology based on science. The U.S. became top in the field by pioneering advancements in medicine, agriculture, and defense. Now that lead is slipping as China harnesses artificial intelligence to gain an advantage.
The Chinese have been investing in biotech for 2 decades now, and they specifically are focused on solving problems to help their war fighters.
Senator Todd Young, the chairman of the National Security Commission on Emerging Biotechnology, tells CBN News one of the major concerns is Beijing pursuing the weaponization of biotech.
Among the things they're doing is investing in materials that are lighter than ours, in propellants so that their missiles travel further than ours, and even potentially in biological weapons. The United States does not do that, but we certainly need to be prepared to defend against those sorts of contingencies.
Young says it's imperative the U.S. doesn't lose its competitive advantage.
We are in this cat and mouse game that has to be won, and we can only win if we are making the similar sorts of advancements that the Chinese, we have to assume, are also making.
The commission presented its report to Congress last month. Top recommendations include congressional action to make biotechnology a national priority, a $15 billion investment over the next 5 years to bolster domestic biotech research, and finding a way to provide more biodata to innovators.
AI-ready biodata is the currency of the realm for national security purposes, and China has access because they don't have the same privacy laws that we do. They literally take biological data from their people and from other flora and fauna. We need to start building consistent with our own values, a big database of AI-ready biodata.
Senator Young says it's not too late for the U.S. to maintain biotech dominance, as long as Congress doesn't wait to take action.
There are many other issues, admittedly, that are competing for attention right now, whether it's immediate threats overseas or fiscal issues we're dealing with here in the United States, tariff policy. But I've tried to encourage my colleagues to focus on this issue amidst all the other distractions and priorities, because frankly, if we wait much longer, we're going to be behind.
The commission's report suggests failure by the U.S. to stay ahead would signal a global power shift toward China, handing them both an economic and defense advantage. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Still ahead, switching to a different subject, dealing with families and the loss of a sibling. Our Studio 5 conversation with author Annie F. Downs about her unique book for children, dealing with death, grief, and heaven. We're going to hear from her right after this. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. New York Times bestselling author Annie F. Downs has written a first-of-its-kind children's book. It's called Where Did TJ Go? It explores death, grief, and heaven.
Sometimes Sam feels sad that TJ isn't at home. The Bible says there are lots of trees in there. Maybe TJ can ride on a giraffe. In heaven, TJ is healthy and strong. He can do so many fun things.
This book is dedicated to Sam.
Yes.
Tell me about Sam. I'm assuming Sam inspired the book. What happened?
Yes, my nephew Sam. He's perfect. At the time when I wrote this, he was about to turn 2. And my sister and my brother-in-law were pregnant again with my nephew TJ. And pretty early in our pregnancy, my sister Tatum found out that TJ was diagnosed with trisomy 18, which is a life-limiting diagnosis. So we knew at like week 12, 15, end of first trimester, that TJ would not live. Unless God did something totally different, TJ would not live. We started really talking about like, how do we help Sam? No one has a book, Ephraim. There's a couple that are mentioned, but nobody tells me this, like, this is the gospel-centric book for our family that helped with the loss of a sibling. And I was like, well, here we go then.
Wow.
So, you know me, Ephraim, I don't make casseroles, but I can tell a story. I was writing a story for Sam. So then when TJ passes, a couple of weeks, months later is when Tatum started reading Sam the book. And then a few months after that, I sent it to my agent and I just said, hey, I don't even know if the publisher wants to put a foot in this because this is really niche. I don't know how many families it will need it, but we did.
What's been the response from people who've read it so far?
Oh gosh. Multiple people said, hey, I bought 5 copies. I don't need any of them yet. And the next day they say, one of my friends just had a miscarriage. I'm so glad I had this sitting on my shelf. So that's been the response so far. It's been really sweet. It's been really kind of people to tell us when the book matters to them. 1 in 4 women have a miscarriage. And so if you count miscarriages plus stillbirth or impossible medical decisions or death of an infant, that is a lot of suffering parents who are raising grieving children who've lost a sibling. So we wish it didn't. We wish nobody needs it. We are so thankful to be a part of the stories where families do need it now.
You've written a lot. How difficult was this particular book?
The first time I wrote it in the car that day was awful. And it was impossible to think about losing a baby. The more you work on it, the more you get to talk about it, the more you hear from families that have needed it, the more I feel strong in it. And I go, okay, this is important. This is important work. And so at some point it switches from this is for our family to this is for any family. But I'm sure glad that God is using our pain to serve other families. In the book, Jesus is reading a story to TJ and it talks about, look, TJ can pay attention, he can read, he can see. And the illustrator drew Jesus reading TJ another one of my kids' books. So I just, as you can imagine, just sobbed when I first saw that and thought, what would it be like if my nephew is getting to read the books I wrote for kids?
If there is one, what's been the prayer for this work?
We just want, when I pray for this book, I want it to land in every hand that needs it. I say this humbly, you know me well enough, so this is the book. This is the book for families that they've been looking for. And you know me, I want people to know Jesus because of this. I want this to end up in people's homes who don't believe everything we believe. And then they go, if this is true, if this is available for TJ, is this available for me? And if this is where TJ is, how do I get there? When I get to heaven, I do hope people say, your work led me toward Jesus. TJ doesn't have 40 years to do that. He had 56 days. I hope people walk up to him there and say, your life got me here. Because of your life and Jesus, I found him too. That's what I'm praying for.
Once again, the book is called Where Did TJ Go? And you can buy it wherever you purchase your reading material. We'll be right back with an encouraging word for your weekend. Stay with us. Time now for your Friday Faithful, and today I leave you with this message. God's dream for you is bigger than you. You can't achieve it without Him. Why? Because it is for Him. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time as well as online. That address is cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Have a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend. We'll see you Monday.